read Corinthians 15, it's really insightful to the resurrection of the dead. And what that says is this: Christ is the first one right now. He's the only guy to have a resurrected body. Remember, the third day he will rise again. When Jesus rose on Easter, we celebrated on Easter, though it wasn't Easter then, okay? He got his resurrected body, physical but different than ours, right? He was able to walk through walls, he was able to disappear and reappear, but at the same time he was able to eat, think, talk. A couple Mondays ago, we were having a Bible study at Panera Bread, which we have every week, 7:30. Panera Bread in Penn Center. If you guys want to come, we're there. But we were discussing what are spirits made of. If you want to ever think about that. And my one friend who is convinced that spirits are made of light. And I don't want to get into all that. But basically, the immaterial part of you does have some kind of form and is contained. Okay, and so angels are not physical, right? Though they can sometimes manifest themselves as physical, right? You look in the Old Testament, especially when the two angels and the pre-incarnate Jesus came to eat with Abraham. They're physical. They're being touched. They're grabbing Lot and his daughters, right? They're eating food physically, but yet they're angels, and it's Jesus before he came as a man. And so angels can manifest as physical beings. However, they are not physical in and of themselves. We are physical. Now, a spirit, though, an angel, we'll just use them for example, can be contained in a body. Just like I'm here and I'm 6'5" and I weigh so much and I'm contained, just like you are. Angels in the same way are contained in a body. Now, God, the Father, is a spirit, and the Holy Spirit is a spirit, and those two spirits, if you will, are non-contained. And the way you can think about that is, right now, we are in their presence. But at the same time, the angels in heaven are in their presence because he is all present. Okay, God is not contained like we are. Does that make sense? All right, so we will go to be with God in heaven, and then at the resurrection, which I think in John, do you remember when Lazarus was raised from the dead? You remember that in John? I can't remember the exact place. I want to say it's around 10 or 11, but I'm not sure. But Mary and Martha they come to Jesus and they're like, if you were here, he wouldn't have died. Right? You remember that? And he said, no, he will live. And what did she say after that? You remember? She said, Lord, I know he'll live at the resurrection. Okay, even the Old Testament, if you will, the Old Testament, the before Jesus died, they believed in the resurrection. They believed that the bodies will come back. And Revelation 21 says this. I'm sorry, 20. It says, I don't want to misquote it. Let me just grab it for you. You guys like talking about this stuff? Okay, good. Yeah, I'm looking for it. Okay. Here is the resurrection and the judgment. Yeah, I know, but I'm reading up above it just to see something real quick. Okay. 2011. Then I saw a great white throne, and him who sat on it. Earth and sky fled from his presence, and there was no place for them to hide. I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and the books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. The dead were judged according to what had been written. The dead were judged according to what they had done, as recorded in the books. The sea gave up the dead that were in it, and this is the bodies now. The sea gave up the dead that were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them, and each person was judged according to what he had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. The lake of fire is the second death. If anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. And so the resurrection of the dead is a time in the far future or near future. We're not told when it's going to be, but it will be when God resurrects everybody, literally, who ever lived. Okay? What that looks like is there's people, all those guys and women who died on the Titanic, and their fish just ate them to pieces. God knows where those particles that those bodies were composed of. Same with 9/11 when that building came down and they found people's clothes, like firemen's clothes, like flat as pancakes. Their bodies are ashes and they're somewhere now, and God's going to bring that all back and reconstruct that and bring everybody back. The bodies that you have will be resurrected and new. And God is able to do that. Okay? The sea gives up all the dead that are in it. The graves all open and everyone comes out. Those eaten by beasts, right? People get devoured by animals all the time. They will come back. Yes, undigested. Okay, and then, so does that answer your question? Yeah, and then at that point, the dead will either go to heaven or hell with their new bodies, physical. So yeah, if you died right now, you will be a bodiless soul or spirit living in heaven with God, still conscious, still able to, I believe, think and know and see, and you just won't have a physical body. No. However, the non-Christians are not going to be in heaven with God. Well, they're in hell. It says death and Hades gave up the dead that were in them. So there's a place of torture that's not necessarily hell, but it is. And then, because it says that in this passage, you just look at it, it says death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. And so it seems like death and Hades is a realm where the dead go before they're judged, and then there's a second hell or deeper level of hell which people get thrown into. Does that make sense? And that's a sad reality. And so with that, I want to leave you guys with this, is that it's real, and you need Jesus. You need to come to Jesus and throw yourself upon him as your only hope for forgiveness and to stand before God the Father in a right state. God can look at you and say, not guilty. Not because you're not guilty, but because Jesus is not guilty. And he was punished in your place, and you were given his righteousness to cover you. That's the good news. And if we come to Jesus humbly and we say, forgive me, cleanse me, he does that. And he makes us his own. And he gives us his righteousness. And we're seen in heaven. If you read Revelation, we're seen in heaven with white robes on, symbolizing the righteousness of Christ. Okay, that's good stuff. And that's also an incentive for us to give the gospel, the good news that Jesus can save them, to other people. And I say this every week. But look for opportunities to give the good news that Jesus can save them. Look for opportunities to give that good news to people. And whether through a book, CD, bringing them to a Bible study, bringing them to church, however you got to do it, pointing them to a YouTube video, an email, whatever, text, whatever you got to do, look for those opportunities to share the gospel. All right? All right. I'm going to pray, and we'll be done.